I'd love to take this opportunity to appreciate everyone who has made a presentation, Krista, Paris, Dennis, Lucy, and any other attendee who is present on this Zoom call. Thank you so much for dedicating your time. This is the start of many knowledge sharing sessions or trainings that are going to happen going forward. Physically, this was just to juggle our minds and um, keeping tabs on what we were able to learn while we participated in the Youth Academy on Climate Adaptation and Leadership. So thank you so much for taking the time to attend. It is very much appreciated.
So Dennis will open for us this workshop, and he will start by breaking it down for us, the notion of climate change and why the climate is changing faster now.
Hello, can you share my screen?
Yes. This is your slide, Dennis. It's okay now? It's okay for you?
Yeah,
Dennis? Okay.
it's okay. Hello, I'm Dennis Obero. Today I'll present on understanding the context of climate change. Before diving into climate change, it's important to understand the distinction between climate and weather. Climate, let me start with weather. Weather refers to the short-term atmospheric condition we are experiencing daily or over a few days. Even can be hours, even seconds. No, not seconds. Can be minutes. Like right now it's cloudy, then naanza kunyesha hivyo, then inafanyika within a short time. Then climate refers to the long-term average patterns in a specific area, na mostly inameshariwa over decades. For example, around 30 years. A quick analogy between climate na weather ni naweza sema weather ni mood. Unaweza like unakuwa happy at one moment, then the next moment you are sad. Na sa climate tunasema ni personality yako, like kama vile personality yako vile uko, like kama unakuanga mtu introvert hivyo, like hiyo ita show up na a long time, ama extrovert ita show up at nini ukijua mtu sana. Yes, so let's start. What is climate change? Climate change refers to the long-term shift in weather patterns and average temperatures. Bado tunaweza sema, we can refer back to the analogy and personalities. The psychologists measure them. Yes, they measure them with the test. Now, the two famous tests wanatumianga ni the Myers-Briggs type indicator na Exaco personality inventory. So bado climate change inakuanga na test zake, inakuwa na indicators unaweza jua kuna climate change. Kuna temperatures zikiwa juu in the land, the sea temperatures zikipanda, bado kuna coastline ikiwa ndogo. As shown in the slide 1. Go back to slide 1. Hello. Oh, that one. Yeah, you can see those indicators. Sea kinashuka, like inakuwa kidogo because the sun ina hit the sea ice. So the sea is inakuwa chini. The sea surface temperature inapanda because the sun is hitting the sea surface. Same case with the ocean heat content. The global sea level rises because the Arctic Sea in a the Arctic Sea in the temperatures are the ice is in a melt in a cause the sea level to rise up. Hii yote ni water cycle in short, inaonyesha water cycle but in a long term inakuwa climate change. The next slide. Hiyo graph inaonyesha nini, the temperature ina rise over a long period. Ukiangalia in 1950s ilikuwa around 0, then ikaenda hadi chini hadi 1965 ilikonga, then over the years you see the temperature inaendelea kwenda juu. The next slide. Endelea tu. Any humidity, the same case humidity chini kiasi. Humidity, same case. You see the humidity ni the amount of water vapor in air. You see the water vapor inaendelea kuenda juu because the sun inaendelea kuheat up the ocean, na then the ocean inafanya like maji ipande because like warm air rises, so ndio maana kunakuwa na humidity mingi. So unaona averagely unaona tu hiyo nini ikienda juu because like over the years the humidity inaendelea juu. Hiyo ni one of the indicator kuna climate change. The next slide. This is the graph showing the temperature over the water. You see it bado ina rise juu, maji inahitiwa, then that water ina evaporate juu, then you see the temperatures na rise. Next slide. Hiyo slide inaonyesha the regional climate trends in Kenya. I guess kulikuwa na slide. Yes, kulikuwa na slide ya nini? Slide but like let me speak to it. So over like in the recent years, like last year and this year, like tunaona like on which month the heavy rains nakwanga zinaanzanga on early March to May, but you see nini may change like for the past 2 years, since the past 3 years, like early rains zinaanzanga from from late March nafika hadi nini, nafika huko June ikianza zinaanzanga. So umeona kuna hiyo nini significant change, but then again zikianza huko late March, kama intensity ya mvua imekuwa mingi for the past 2 years, unaona unapata mvua inaisha mingi. Hiyo kitu iko hizo years zingine sema kwa 2017 kwa 2015 those times hakuwa kunanyesha hadi kuna flood, but napata like last year even this year on March kunanyesha hadi ile extent ile kuna flood even in Nairobi like naishi huko, but sijai experience floods. This year nime experience floods, like nimepata place nakaa kuna flood juu, like kunanyesha sana hadi kuna flood. Unaona hiyo change, then napata then the same year bado napata kunakuwa na droughts in other places, na like kumenyesha sana huko March, kumenyesha sana, but nafika month kama huko September unapata kuna some counties in the same country ile kulikuwa kunanyesha hadi kuna flood Kenya, napata kuna drought. So unaona hiyo vile like iko. What else? Hiyo ndio the regional climate trends in Kenya. So the next slide ni about the mitigation and adaptation. Au tumefika. Let me shortly define it like na speaker atakuja ata define it very deeply. Mitigation involves action to reduce or prevent greenhouse gases emission and slow the pace of global warming. Examples of mitigation strategies ni switching to renewable energy like solar and wind, improving energy efficiency to minimize waste, and planting trees to absorb carbon dioxide. Adaptation means adjusting to current or extended expected changes caused by climate change. It aims to reduce vulnerability and enhance resilience. Examples ni build a defense like build flood defense, developing drought-resistant crops, managing our water resources. Yes, that's me. I hope you understand any questions on climate change. If any questions. I hope mmeshika climate change ni nini.
That was well done, Dennis. Maybe just a recap before we take a break in the next we'll take a 5-minute break after this recap, and then we'll come back on the same link to continue with the second and third sessions, and then we'll just try to minimize it between 40 minutes. We do 3 sessions within 40 minutes, and you can have the last 40 minutes to tackle our objective. So from what I understood, Dennis, you're saying weather is everyday change of weather is everyday, measuring the weather. We measure the weather conditions every day, but climate is an average of weather in a period of 30 years. So no matter on some of the graphs zinaonyesha from 2003 to from 1980 to 2003. So they had measured the climate change between this period, and now 10 years ago or 7 years ago, they went to Paris and they came up with an agreement of keeping the heat below 1.5. So when they measure the next 10 years, they said during this period, the weather is changing so rapidly, there's need to do things differently. So when the heat there's too much heat, so much carbon dioxide released, the heat goes to the Arctic Sea, melt your ice, and then temperature rise up over the ocean currents, bring some kind of the ocean currents bring humidity up top. We're having different kind of rains, and then the global sea level rise, snow inaendelea kumelt. So the whole cycle is now it needs to be monitored and reduced. So the current plan for Kenya and for the global south need adaptation, because at the end of the day, we're only emitting like 1.1% of the gases that need to be reduced. So what can we do as the global south? Tuna need to adapt, tuna need to be prepared, tuna need to kujiprotect, tuko very vulnerable. So my takeaway for the schools could be, maybe we just tell them what is climate, what is weather, and how the cycle works, and then we just tell them we are now here to adapt. So some of the adaptation climate actions to list as we keep going. I hope everyone got something from that. Let's take a 5 minutes break and then we come back. Okay.
In Kibra, the largest slum area in the country, environmental issues are pressing, but solutions are emerging. Meet the Leave Great Foundation, a community dedicated to tackling waste with creativity and determination. Together, We're on a mission to create a cleaner Kijiji with zero waste through innovative and proper waste management systems. Working hand in hand with the community, we believe collective efforts bring positive change. Visit us on our socials at Leave Great Foundation. Join us in our journey to make Kibra cleaner and greener.
Okay, so let's continue. Thank you.
Yes.
So it's my turn to present, and I will take you through advocacy, policy advocacy, and lobbying. So what is policy advocacy and lobbying? It's the deliberate process of influencing those who make decisions about developing, changing, and implementing policies. These policies are the guiding rules or guiding lines around things that should be done, how they should be done. For example, in waste management, there was recently, they put out a policy on the garbage trucks should not collect waste that is not separated. So you see, such kind of a policy only favors the people who can do separation, who can afford to do separation of waste. And when you think about, because we're looking for locally led adaptation ways, this is not a policy that is favorable to someone in Kibera or even just a middle-class person. So an action directed at changing the policies, positions, or programs of any institution. So that's the lobbying part, pleading for, defending, or recommending an idea before other people, speaking up, drawing a community's attention to an important issue, and directing decision makers towards a solution. So policy advocacy and lobbying is really about, because now we're knowledgeable with this information on climate change adaptation. And we also know that there's only a few people who make decisions on behalf of all the Kenyans and on behalf of many CBOs and primary actors. So now that we are the primary actors and we have information and we know who these people are, when we are in forums and in groups with them, we should be confident enough to stand in front of them and talk on behalf of the communities we're representing. So it's about just understanding when we are doing workshops at the community levels, we are advocating and telling people, so this is what should be done, this is what's happening. So you bring masses, numbers of people together, you teach them and you make them understand their place in this whole climate change adaptation conversation. So when us leaders are in front of creating these workshops with other community leaders, we have an opportunity to actually influence many people, because you tell them one thing and they go tell it to their neighbors, to their other associates, so the word spreads quickly. But then as we integrate in the chain of people making decisions, so huko juu tuko na politicians na the presidents. Personally, mimi kama leader, nikienda kwa workshop ya mtaa, nita reach many people, but probably the government haitaisikia Live Great Foundation. So how can Live Great Foundation do activities that will get the attention of the government and these policy people? So when tumefanya workshops zetu kuchini, tunaendelea ku get numbers and numbers and numbers. Now comes a place where we can do a petition. So we said now at Live Great tuko na 1,500 people. Now, 1,500 people, if they are to tell 5 people, inamaanisha tutakuwa na almost 7,500 ama 10,000 people. Then we can launch a petition and say, by the way, hile policy yenye mulieka ati hamta tuchukulia takataka juu tuja separate, it does not make sense. So this is when maybe itafikia MCA ama our decision makers aseme, hey, by the way, kuna hawa watu mahali 10,000 people wanasema this is unfair to them, wanasema this is not workable, wana demand, wana request. So this is about policy advocacy and lobbying. So working with other people and organizations to make a difference. So that's when you build a group of people behind you, when you can put meetings together with other bigger groups. So collaboration, and then putting a problem on the agenda, providing a solution to that problem, and building support for acting on them, on both the problem and the solution, changing an organization internally or altering an entire system. It involves many specific short-term activities to reach a long-term vision of the change. So unaona, tukifanya workshop ya kwanza liberate, maybe tutafikia only 50 leaders, maybe each group iko na 10 people, only 500 people. So it means we need to do lots of workshops, try and pass out the same message, so that when you're doing this petition, tuko sure tunaongea the same language, many people. And then another thing on policy and policy advocacy and lobbying. So it consists of different strategies to influence decision-making at organization level, local, provincial, national, and international levels. Includes lobbying on social marketing, information, education, community organizing, or many other tactics. The process of people participating in decision-making processes that affect lives. So unaona, kuna 5 choices of advocacy and approaches. So kuna hiyo collaboration, kuna direct persuasion, building support from the public. Hiyo ndio nilikuwa nasema, you build masses over time, and then now you say, sawa, ini 50,000 people are great. So unaona, tuko na a huge support. You cannot miss to notice 50,000 people doing a protest or a march. So kuna coercive pressure, ndo hizo ma strikes, direct action, boycotts, and then litigation, suing the policymakers in the courts. So I think litigation is for the rich. I'm not sure, it's open for discussion. But collaboration and signing petitions, these are things that can easily be done. So you can see on this triangle over here, at the community level, you influence many people. So you do the workshops and the networking programs. And then to reach the minute people, the decision makers, because see, wengi, tuko millions of Kenyans when we only have like 200 MPs representing the things we want to be done. So 200 out of millions of people, yeah, hapo tunawa reach through petitions and things like that. So yeah, that was my part about policy advocacy and lobbying. So it's really about putting in small works zenye siku moja zitakuja explode. Naona kama venye kulikuwa tuna maandamano all of a sudden, it did not happen overnight. Ini kitu yenye wasa walikuwa wanaisema social media, tuende, reject, all these things. And then one time we were able to do something super impactful to the lives of Kenyans. So the same thing, we need to be well aware about, we need to be educated on the kind of policies the government is putting out for us. Tuna need to be up to date with the new information. Like right now, tumeacha kuregister under NGO Board of Governors. Paris, when you're registering your foundation, you need to register with the new act that the president signed, inaitwa PBO. So instead of registering na NGO Board of Governors, sahi hizi civil societies, NGOs, register under a new thing, PBO. It's called PBO. So sijui kama ni another scheme for the government to collect money, or it's something that's going to actually benefit the societies. We'll find out. So social movement theory, every social movement needs to organize itself to allow coordinated action and continuity over time. It needs to generate a movement culture, including persuasive ideological claims, and to negotiate successfully the social environment, including taking advantage of opportunities available. Cultural identity theory, resource mobilization theory, political opportunities. So like currently now in the West sector, we are well aware that the government is putting money aside for adapting to the climate change. So it's upon us to hold these MCAs accountable. Najua wanakuanga MIA, but kuna so many opportunities in their offices, and ni sisi kuwafuata wa release the monies, because otherwise they just keep them to themselves and use them for their own benefit. They eat and drink it. general positive effects, reward, and legend. So in relation to our expected outcome for today, for policy and advocacy, maybe you guys can help me bring out ideas on how kids can use this. So what kind of activities can the kids do to be able to like speak out? Because now sisi ndo leaders, and then them, they're the future leaders, so they need to be, I think the education part really makes sense. So tunawafundisha, and they can now bring also their ideas on paper, and we can put out the book, we can teach them the sustainable gardening. Hizi vitabu zikikuwa mingi with different stories, they can be shared across the country and they can be used to inspire other kids to adapt to the situation. Sema haya, hawa walifanya hivi, hata sisi tunaweza fanya hivi, we can do better. So that was me on policy, advocacy, and lobbying. Our last slide is going to be, because we're leaders, we need to know how to maneuver in this space where you're trying to influence people and just talk to people and pass information to them. So we will learn about soft skills. I'm trying to find the slide. Soft skill and dictation. Yeah, soft skills and dictation. Yeah. So because we're all leaders, we're all trainers, and this is something we want you to go and teach to, like, for example, I think we have Habil here. He's from, okay, well, you're not seeing him, but Habil is from Usafi Boys. This is something that could be of use to him. And even for all of us, when you're going to teach people, these are some of the things you can use to just be calm, break nervousness. Yes. But sharing the floor is for you. Are you there?
So I'll kick off. So you can just bring up. So a lot of these slides are literally like group work. So I won't touch on a lot of them. So you'll just bear with me. But Lucy will share all the slides that were presented today so that you can have a session where, like your own in your own individual time, you can just go through the slide, do a kind of research, but I'll touch on the main slides. So as you can see, this is a welcome remark. So definitely we've been able to do the ground rules. So I don't really need this slide. So you can just scroll up. Yeah, just maintain on the program. So on the program, as you can see, we have the objectives. And the objectives basically from everything that you've learned, because me, I'm not touching on a specific thematic area in terms of climate change, but literally just communicating on how you are supposed to engage while you are implementing all these solutions that have been presented with by Krista, Paris, and Lucy and Dennis. Hence, this is just basically on your communication skills and how to relate with people and how to maintain perfect emotional intelligence, which is so important considering that we are working with a community that doesn't really understand climate change and probably doesn't believe in it because they don't understand it in the first place. So there's a way that you're supposed to communicate, hence the reason why we need to have soft skills. And if I can just define soft skills for you, in my understanding, I understand in the context of climate adaptation and mitigation, since that's what we are talking on, these are skills that enable collaboration and, if I can say, problem solving and communication in addressing the complex matters about climate adaptation. And this other word that's escaping my mind, interdisciplinary challenges that are posed by climate change. So how do you communicate this to the community that you are trying to facilitate the trainings to? And if I can just mention the importance of soft skills as I move on with the slide, because this is what I was able to learn from on my own research. In terms of soft skills, it enables you to facilitate collaboration and partnership because when you have these soft skills, as I mentioned, soft skills are personal traits that enable you to interact and network with other people, convince. So these are literally personal characters on how you engage because yes, you have the knowledge on adaptation, you have the knowledge on mitigation, and these are all scientific and basically sort of complex. But how do you relate it to someone who dropped out of school, someone who never went to school, someone who doesn't understand matters about climate change, and someone who is ignorant towards uh, climate action and adaptation? Because they'll feel like, okay, what are you talking about? So how do you deal with these people? So these are interpersonal skills, and I think that having these personal traits, which are called soft skills, are really important so that you know how to really engage. And another point I would say it promotes effective communication, and what we are doing right now, it's advocacy. So I'd say in terms of public awareness, even as we are planning to do the physical training, so that will be public awareness. So while you communicate climate risks and solutions, you need to be clear and it needs to be relatable in terms of it being so vital so that you can garner public and maybe a local administration support in terms of the chief because you're working with the grassroots community. So those are just a few examples as I move on with the slide so that we can get a better understanding of what we are trying to handle here. So I'll just be sort of fast. So if we can just move on to after, like we can talk about the outcomes. I think the outcomes are important. I think it's slide 6 or 5.
Okay, slide 6.
Mhm. Move up.
Up?
Yeah, up again. Up or down? I don't understand. Like, I don't see the numbers on this.
This
So
is
I think it's the slide on no, no, no. You're going too far.
Mhm. This is page
Yeah, learning outcomes. Back on the objectives. Can you back on the objectives?
Yeah,
The upper slide. No, 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 no.
this one.
Yeah, exactly. So I wanted to touch on the learning outcomes, even as you prepare on your adaptation initiatives. I think from you communicating what you're trying to implement, I think you should be able to communicate effectively to others and create rapport as it is written over there because you need to be relatable and people need to connect with you so that they can understand and tap into what you believe in and what you see because when you have a vision you need to communicate it so well to your team so that they are able to feel like okay, I resonate with this and I connect with this, so I am going to join this movement. And the second point, if I can just touch on 3, you need to facilitate the learning process of groups of people they train. So this is basically, I'd say this is literally what we are trying to do right now because we are trying to understand and Live Great has their team here. So they need to understand like the whole process and they need to have a deeper understanding of what we are trying to execute, which is super important so that while they relate this information in terms of the adaptation actions and the solutions in terms of mitigation that are provided here, they're able to uh, they need to be intentional in terms of their action and as an organization in an informal settlement you cannot just come up with an action that doesn't have like a clear understanding or reason or purpose and you are not just doing it just so that you can do it and look like you are doing it. It needs to have like a deeper understanding of the people. You need to engage the community and it needs to solve a certain issue or challenge in the community. So you're not just doing it to do it. In terms of, I'd say, for example, Live Great is big in community cleanup. So in terms of these cleanups, when you clean up, after you clean up, where do you take the waste? Do you repurpose all of it? Do you redirect it to another dump site? And do you have solutions on how you can repurpose every type of waste that you collect? So people really need to understand, and that's what your trainers need to do. If I can touch on the last one, we can do work towards a common goal. So in terms of communication, people are able to understand each other, and they are able to connect and reach a consensus in terms of, okay, let's work on this one specific agenda, because you need to have action points. So while you are preparing for your initiatives and your actions in the community level. Like, it's not something that you just do just to do it so that the community can see, oh, these people cleaned this area, but then you go back the next day, then it's dirty. You need to come up with a circular solution so that it makes sense, and there's consistency in terms of how it affects the community, and how the impact, how long the impact will be in terms of when you do the monitoring and evaluation. So training overview, I don't think we really need to go through this. Like, we got acquainted, everyone knows each other here. In terms of communication skills, that's what I'm touching on. Cultural awareness, bias, like we need to respect each other's background, sexual orientation, and all that. I think we all understand what we are talking about. And we can move on to the next slide. In terms of the learning process, I don't think I really need to touch a lot about that, because this basically shows how the different ways you can learn. You learn through observing, you learn through thinking and reflecting, where you can think about something and you relate it to something that you experience every day. You learn through doing. So that's basically it. And through reflection, could you just come back up a bit? Okay, what? Okay, no, no, no. On just the next slide on reflecting. So in terms of coming up with an action or trying to make a decision, there are guiding points, and these guiding points are stated as what, so what, and what's the next one I can see? Oh, now what? Okay, I can see it. So when you're asking what, in terms of you come up with an action, okay, so what? Okay, you're trying to find out the source of the challenge. You're trying to understand the solution that you're trying to implement, and you're trying to see how it will fit a certain challenge or issue that you're trying to sort. Because a challenge in Nakuru is different from what you're experiencing in Kibra. So you need to put it in the context of Kibra. And so what? Um, in terms of so what, you as it stated here, you reflect on the experience. So what did you understand from the specific challenge, and probably why it says what surprised you? It's basically because you are like, okay, you thought that you understood the problem so well, but you found some surprises in the different challenges that came about. So how do you go about that? And you need to address it. Like, first, you need to recognize, and these are sort of indicators that you can look at so that you can know how to come up with certain solutions. And also, there's a way that it provokes you. And as we move on to now what is basically the action point. Okay, now what are you going to do, since you already understand the challenge, you know the solutions? So how are you going to implement it, and how are you going to make it sustainable and consistent? So as we move on to the next slide, getting acquainted. Let's move up to getting acquainted. I don't think we need to touch up on that slide. We can just move on. That's an activity. We move on. We move on. So in terms of the
Still an
communication, I
activity.
think, yeah, that's an activity. Okay, let's go. Just move up. So like on the feedback, I think we can touch on that. Or we can just move on. I think we'll dive deeper into the feedback as we meet physically. So this is die. I don't know. Yeah, it's not like really dying, but let's maintain on that die for a bit.
Mhm.
So in terms of this is the whole thing is all about perception. How do you perceive things and how do you see things? And if you put it in the context of a community level, it's the same way a person might be living next to a dump site, but it doesn't affect him or her. But with you, when you go there, you're like, how is this person able to live next to, you know, such great amounts of waste and it's not even affecting him? Because there's odor and there's like great smell. It's just like the context of Dandora, where the dump site is. There are houses next to the dump sites, and I have family there. And when I visit them, and you're sitting in the living room, like you can smell like everything that's coming from the dump site, but it's like they're used to it. So how I perceive it and they are used to it, me, I'm like, okay, this is messed up. Like something needs to be done. And how you interpret it, because they interpret it differently. They're like, okay, it has been here, but you're like, okay, no, get it out of here. So interpretation, like how do you also like uh understand it and how do you conclude it on your own in your own mind, and evaluation, definitely you feel about how I feel about what I think. Like, how do you feel about it? I feel like, okay, I feel bad, but what can I do about it? So you can move on. This is an activity. We'll do all these activities when we do the physical training. So please do not worry. But it will be fun. We'll put it in different activities in a different form, and then I will be able to have fun with it. So is this the last page evaluation? Let me see evaluation. So I can just conclude by saying that in terms of soft skills, I feel like soft skills really amplify the effectiveness of technical expertise, because we have all this knowledge. Like when you look at Krista and Paris, Dennis, and Lucy, like all your presentations, you've communicated like a great amount of knowledge. But how do you turn this knowledge into actionable and sustainable outcomes in climate adaptation and mitigation efforts? And that goes back to soft skills. Like you need to know how to communicate well. And at the end of the day, we need to work on our communication skills and how we relate to each other. So I will conclude at that. And thank you so much for your time. I don't want to take so much of it, but I truly appreciate all of you for turning up. So thank you so much. That is me signing out.
Abu Dhabi. That was excellent. So just to conclude on the soft skills, for example, now we're walking into a school. It's a bit noisy, and I'll finish in 2 minutes. So if you guys are okay with it, we can have the last Zoom, 20 seconds to do our assignments. Sorry, 20 minutes to do our assignments, because this one is going to end shortly. So on soft skills, you enter a school and you need to read the language in the class, or if you're meeting the kids in an assembly. So if you read the room. So if they're bored, you can start with music, you can start with a fun activity before you start talking to them. If they're already hyped, you can give them an activity that gets them thinking and toned down. So yeah, something that can help you pass your message effectively, that they will understand. So if they're bored, you play some games, you do the name calling, all these activities that we've skipped. For those that will be joining us on the one-on-one TOT trainers, you will be able to play and practice on these activities. So good job, all the attendants and the guests that were delivering these classes. So I'll send another link, but this one will just stay for 20 minutes and we can call it a good evening. Okay? See you in 5. Yeah.
the like steps you have to follow in order for you to be able to implement this adaptation solutions. And this is designing climate adaptation actions, implement them in local communities. And the most amazing way to do this at this point, and something that GCA is also driving, is something known as locally led adaptation. And you also need to evaluate adaptation actions, scale up adaptation action, meaning that if you do it in one point or once you begin, you need to be able to replicate whatever you're doing or to enhance it, but get increase the audience or the target that you're working with, so that like your skill is up. And then you need to identify sources of funding, which is something that is incapacitating a lot of organizations and a lot of projects happening, especially here in Kenya. So far from what you've learned to this point to do with climate adaptation and related concepts, or slide 2, we have ecosystem-based adaptation, we have green infrastructure. When we talk about this, we have stuff like climate-friendly building materials. We have recycled or upcycled materials used in infrastructure. We have greener cities, and also like just creating that sort of green infrastructure in terms of combining like built environment with actual green environment. We also have less carbon emitting forms of transport, such as electric cars and such. We also have area-based conservation, ecological restoration. I think all of us at this point have seen what's been happening in Mandera. They've done a lot of restoration in that county. Ecological engineering, disaster risk education, integrated ecosystem management, and climate adaptation services. So when we talk about ecosystem-based adaptation, this is just the use of biodiversity and ecosystem services as part of an overall adaptation strategy to help people and communities adapt to the negative effects of climate change at local, national, regional, and global levels. And nature-based solutions are these actions that we use to sustainably restore natural or modified ecosystems so as to address any societal changes, to provide human well-being and biodiversity benefits. And core principles of climate adaptation, and the implementation is to embrace nature conservation norms, implement these things alone or in an integrated manner, determined by specific contexts, produce societal benefits fairly and equitably, maintain biological and cultural diversity, applied at a landscape scale, recognize and address the trade-offs, and aim to be an integral part of the overall design of policies. And this is most important. So we have like different stages. You have to first be able to know the societal challenges, and then you design at scale. And from that, there is the biodiversity net gain, economic feasibility, can't spell that well, and inclusive governance and balanced trade-offs. So all of this should be achieved from the design that you have come up with, and they should lead to an adaptive kind of management, and this should mainstream and be sustainable. So we have an example of natural infrastructure for water management. And if you have time, because of time, you can just go and just look into that diagram.
So before I share your slide, maybe you can just tell us how you think, what your suggestions would be in implementing this kind of adaptation to schools, primary schools. So that's about 6 years to 14 years. What kind of an implementation action can we put out for the kids?
So basically, one of the best ways to implement is through climate literacy. Like, we need to be able to inform them, because you cannot act without information. Once you're well aware of what is happening around you, once you're well aware of what you're coming up against, it's easy for you to come up with solutions. It's easy for you to, be motivated to even be creative and think in line with, maybe we already have the solutions and we just need like this information or this push for us to be able to be inspired on what to do next. So we had come up with a bunch of activities to do with kids as Standard Foundation, and I think I can share that with you. We came up with activities such as the climate change literacy. And another way we came up with, because what we're trying to do there is to create awareness on the knowledge systems of indigenous peoples and local communities. And the only way we can be able to get to create awareness on that is to also understand that and be able to give it a platform. So we can only do that through communication. So we also decided to use art as a tool of communication, because one thing that is constant through different communities, even though it comes in different forms, is art. Because languages are different. Sometimes there's a language barrier. But when you draw an apple, even if I can't call it an apple, maybe I'm calling it something different, I know what it is, you know. So we decided to inspire communication through art, not just drawing, not just painting, but also singing, dancing, and all these things. Because once someone is confident, because this is also like motivating them to be well within their element and their identity. When I tell you to, let's say you're in a different country, maybe let's say you're in the US, and someone starts talking to you in Kiswahili, it'll really hit different for you. You'll feel like, hey, I'm far away from home, but like there's a piece of home right here with me, from that sort of engagement. Because now someone is talking to you in Kiswahili and it's something you're very familiar with. Maybe you're familiar with English, but for you, it's mostly a means of communication. But with Kiswahili, it's more of a part of who you are. So those are the kind of things we are trying to target by introducing the concept of expression through art, in any form of art and in the most original form. And we would work towards interpreting it and whatever. So this was supposed to allow us to understand the kind of knowledge systems that they already have about their location, especially to do with environmental conservation, or just to get their experiences and whatnot. And that this would really allow us, or even to give us ideas on what to do with regards to nature-based solutions, or what we can work together on with that. So after they've had this climate change literacy, they've understood what climate change is exactly, they can start putting the pieces together. Like, okay, so this in our community, this is how we behave when it starts to rain. This is what we plant when it's the drought season and we still get food. They're able to start putting the pieces together, and they're able to start actually practically like implementing this kind of things, and this is solutions. So those were part of the activities that we had in mind: creative expression, climate change literacy, and already we have already started doing sustainable community gardens. We call this the we call this the TF Club, and they do all these activities within the club. So I just wanted to share with you what we're doing with kids, and see maybe if it could inspire what you want to do in informal settlements.
Wow, it's amazing. Yes, I think communication through art is something we are definitely going to borrow. And from your presentation and Krista's presentation, I just got okay, well, it's not originally my idea, but I'm thinking maybe we create a children's book where they tell their stories of how they're trying to adapt to these climate changes. So if now we because this thing is going to be going directly to the environmental clubs, if they don't have, it's a new journey with them. So when we introduce things like the sustainable garden, and after a short while, say we tell them in 3 months you need to develop a children's book that's about how you've championed on this climate change, and it has to be really true, because we give them activities to do, and then they will have a real story to tell. So yeah, good presentation from Harris and Krista. Thank you. Excellent. So we take another break, and then we'll come for the last session. We'll try to make it still 40 minutes. So 5 minutes break, and we'll come back for the last 2 sessions. Yeah, okay. So on this book, we are going to start with understanding climate literacy, but we will say understanding climate change, difference between weather and climate, and then there will be a diagram to break it down in a simplified way. For number 2, page 2, we'll talk about finding solutions. So the kids will be obliged to like come up with their own projects. They'll be encouraged to do this. And then number 3, we'll talk about importance of climate adaptation and mitigation. So the book is on page 4 now, different types of communication skills. So there will be examples and elaborations. We will make the book very colorful with lots of pictures and colors, art communication. So the last part of the book, what should we put? Anyone? By the way, here we have Joseph from Nisitu. He has a very huge innovation on. He's using glass and gunia. Gunia inaitwaje na English. He's using glass and polythene, a better version of polythene to make building structures. The building block is 3 times stronger than the normal concrete. It does not allow water to pass through it. So he's doing super incredible on the upcycling industry. Nimemsave kama Joseph Postguru. Maybe he can say something. Joseph, you there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
First of all, I would like to give my great thanks for what I've grasped talked of about climate change. Before maybe I go further, I had a suggestion. Just since this is a child thing, we are doing it at least for our children. Our children actually also means our future, and our climate at the same time also means the future. So I was actually suggesting, as we will be doing introduction to maybe different schools, can we be able to have something like a video showing, because I think children are more of watching than reading. Yes, they can read, but they are more attracted to watching. So the video that actually talks about environment and how when you pollute, how it can be, when you save, how it can be, something of that kind. It can be, I think it is much of animations. Just a short one that at least can make them now understand it much better. Okay, the book is very much okay. It's for the long term, but now videos, if you can have it just to support it and make them at least relate with it much better. I don't know if that can be possible.
It is definite. Everything is possible, and this one sounds very interesting. Video illustration. So I don't know if this is going to be presented to the whole school, ama to the environmental clubs, because now when we're going into a school, for us to make this program a long term, we have to find some people to run it for us on the environmental program. So for the first time, we can do a video when the whole school is viewing, and then we'll say, okay, now mko na environmental club, tunaweza saidia kuwa na environmental club who will be awarded these books for deeper understanding, and now they will have these activities that Krista suggested for page 2. Yeah, so yes, it's here. I put it down for further discussions, and of course, when this whole book is prepared, I will share it with everyone for edits and more reviewing before January, the 2nd week, when it's going to start being in use. So yeah, it's a great idea. Thank you.
Yeah. Then I also had a concern or a question concerning now the entire thing. When we were looking into it, did we consider things like maybe urban heat? How does population relate to it? I don't know whether we considered such a thing, because when we are looking at the mitigations and maybe adaptability, urbanization and population really matters a lot. Have you ever heard of, there's this thing that was called urban heat? It has been ongoing. I think they're almost launching it now.
Urban heat?
Yeah. Is anyone ever come across something urban heat?
Urban heat effect? Or
yeah, urban heat effect.
Yes.
Like the way 3 people died because of the heat effect.
Not really that way, but urban heat actually, it relates from the atmospheric temperature is being compared with the temperature released from the ground. Actually, they directly relate to the climate change. So I don't know whether we considered something of that kind. the reason I'm trying to raise something of that kind, I was trying to look at it in a bigger picture when it comes to, because the most important part of it is the mitigation and maybe adaptability, of course. So when you look deeper into it, at least what will guide us to let us know whether what we are doing will be incompetence or will be maybe inconveniencing some other things. So that is why I'm trying to check if course or in the time that you are learning that course, was there a point or a chance that you interacted with the population and urbanization in regard to climate change? Because if you compare the way you've started explaining, back then in the oldest days, the temperature was was accommodative. But as time goes on, that is where we are now talking about global warming and the rest. So definitely we'll tell this how it relates with the population or the urbanization. So maybe I was thinking in the presentation for mitigation, we have to draw something from the population and the urbanization to help us, because urbanization and the population continues to increase, will always increase. I don't know, there's something that can be related to it so that it can help in the mitigation.
Well, I have mostly learned something new from what you just said. But
Okay.
I also know that the climate change dictatorate, here, Gina, they established a way forward in Kenya for this climate change issue. So ilisema sisi tuna adapt. We need to adapt to that. So I don't know what are some of the things you can do to adapt to some of the situation is real. Urbanization in a grow, population in a grow. Yeah. So ni upon you engineers to come up with a design of how you can adapt to whatever is already going on. Sisi hatuna capacity ya kumitigate story because hata ukiangalia hatuna so many industries zenye zinafanya production in large scale. Maybe EPZ pekee. But ukiangalia countries zingine wako na industries on industries, recycling centers on recycling centers. They have all these things going on. So maybe nyinyi engineers mwanze kutengeneza some urban structures zenye maybe ziko na different kinds of ventilations. I don't know.
True. Actually, okay.
Definitely.
Okay.
True, ni kweli. We can only adapt kwa mambo ya urbanization juu mitigation kwa na how do we adapt? There are nini kuna, for example, Nairobi iko the best city themselves adapting to hiyo nini urbanity effect juu kuna forest within Nairobi na kuna like two main forests, kuna Karura na kuna Ngong Forest. One of the way tunaweza bado tunaweza mitigate by planting trees in those planting trees in those areas to hizo ndio zinafanya like the city to breathe, like zina absorb that carbon dioxide ndio ilete more cooling than the heating ile ina happen then ile ina happen in the city. So inaweza kuwa both ways but more of adaptation to Nairobi peke yake. Ukienda other cities, most of the cities zinapatikana in the world zinapatikana in the coastal region na ni ngumu ku mitigate there, have to adapt. Yeah, and I call upon the inventors, the engineers, on ndio waweze ku innovate structures zile zinaweza ku work na the environment.
Okay, interesting. Okay, that was my take. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I've noted the video illustrations, very engaging. Yes. So the last part for our book, what shall we do? I think for storytelling, kila mtu nini, they can put out our champions in the environmental groups, they can put out stories. Because kwa page 2 already walikuwa na a task to do, find solutions. So maybe every school can put out a nice story yenye participants wa environmental club kila mtu ako na story yake inawekwa in one book, and we say this is Langata West climate something book. And as we go around these schools, eventually kutakuwa na competition, yani just to make this thing going and being passed down. So maybe every 3 months kuna kitabu mpya inatoka Langata West, maybe every 1 year or twice in a year. All the storytellers huko, mwingine atatuambia venye initiative yake ya sustainable garden ilikuwa, maybe mwingine atatuambia venye ali create something. So yeah, a story from every school.
Niko na swali kuhusu kitabu. Hiyo kitabu iko ni ya age group gani? Juu kuna different age groups na they have their own level of understanding. Kama ni ya like kuna grade 1 to grade 4, grade 1 to grade 3 what understand different than grade 4 to grade 6. Their level of understanding may different. So
good question, because kama in a school environmental club wako na one club ama wako na many clubs ama, that is something we can find out. Okay, so guys, I am so blessed and honored to have you guys on board and staying all these hours trying to do this thing for the kids, for us. Thank you for teaching my team. Thank you for everyone who has supported this initiative. Krista, Dennis, myself, Larry, good facilitation, Paris, participants, both Josephs, Sharon. I'm so sorry our chairman did not make it. But I was recording all this for the people that did not show up. In my team, we also have an athlete. Mwenye alikuwa anafikiria to join halfway, but maybe practice may overstay. And my team lead sent his apologies. But generally, thank you so much. Let me just close with a word of prayer. Lord, we thank you for today. We thank you for this great initiative that has just ended. Thank you for the ideas that came up. Thank you for the will that you have put in our hearts. Thank you for all the heads represented here, families represented. Thank you for being part of us. We're so grateful that we've been able to do this. We were nervous, but you've done it so well. Thank you that whatever we put down today in paper is going to be taught across millions of kids. And thank you because we will be here again to thank you for the success of our small efforts today. And you will find the right people, you'll bring the right people in our paths to help us bring this out in large numbers. Thank you for Tenet Foundation, for the environmentalists here. Thank you for Live Great, and above all, may your will be done. Amen.
Amen.
Congratulations to all of you for curating this book. So I will put down the details and I'll share with everyone, and we'll start editing and run with it. Thank you, guys. Okay. My heart is so full. Bye-bye. Have lovely evenings. Poleni kuweka sana. I know some of you are not even in Nairobi. You're working. Thank you again.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.